So thank you everyone for being here. I'm Jess, that's me on Twitter, it's Jess R. Morley. And as Bav said, we met at a Gender and Tech talk a few weeks ago, and then he was quite interested in the type of stuff that I do, and then we were like, well, maybe we can try and put a gender spin on type of the stuff that I do. So we're going to go with it and see how it goes. In terms of, it's really important for me, I'm a social scientist and then data on top of it. So positionality is really important. I kind of wear two hats. I work at the Department of Health and Social Care, so we are the boss of the NHS. So we make the rules, but then we also sit on top of social care and on top of the private healthcare sector as well. And then I am also a student at the Oxford Internet Institute, where I do social science of the internet. So my interest is, what are the social ramifications of datafying the NHS? So there's a huge, big push that data is good for everything. And I'm kind of looking at it and going, well, maybe it's not. Maybe there are some implications where we don't want to be datafying everything, or we need to be having better conversations with people. Like, what happens about the fact that we've had a model for 70 years now where health was not based on whether you have access to a particular device. It was based on whether, we've had access issues if you were near a GP, if you were not near a GP, but it was never based on, do you have a smartphone, can you run an algorithm, can you do all of these things? And now we're moving in that direction, and what are the implications of that? Also, from a positionality perspective, I said this last time, I'm going to talk a lot about what it means to be a woman in this space, but also please bear in mind, I'm a woman, but I'm white, I'm middle class, I'm cis, and I'm straight. That affects everything as to where I sit within the position of society. So don't forget that. So the algorithm will see you now, but does it care if you're a dog? It's a little bit of an insane title, but you'll see what I'm talking about when we move on. So everyone kind of is aware vaguely of the Hippocratic Oath. This is the philosophy that should govern all medicine, as in, do no harm. It comes from this guy, Hippocrates. He was a philosopher many, many years ago, back in the sort of 13th, 12th, 13th century. I can't remember the exact dates. And it's kind of seen as the panacea for medical care. In fact, it has started to be a case that I've had quite a lot of people talk to me about, should we be having a Hippocratic Oath for medical algorithms so that they say, do no harm. But who does it mean when it say do no harm? We kind of often think that the health is for everyone. NHS is based on the cradle to the grave, etc., etc. Hippocrates actually believed that hysteria was a condition that women could suffer from because we had wandering wombs. So oh yeah, they can move around your body and they make you go a bit crazy. That's why women are more emotional. That's why they're less good at loads of stuff, because they can suffer from this actual medical condition called hysteria. You think, or we'd like to think, that those perceptions have gone away and that we've moved on now. Complete and utter nonsense. We still have really, really big issues with gender bias in medical care. Women's pain is consistently underrated more than men. If you go and do any sort of Google Scholar search, anything of studies, it will show you that they have done effectively A/B testing in the medical situation, where they have gone in, a man has described the exact same symptoms as a woman. He's been given a diagnosis and said, this is what's problem, this is a genuine problem, here you go, take these drugs. Woman has been told, go away, you're fine, you're just a little bit sad, or you might be emotional, or it's just everywhere. One of the biggest ones is in heart attacks. If you think heart attack is a really sort of major event in your life, women are consistently misdiagnosed with having a heart attack because they are told that they're having a panic attack. So it's there. We can't get away from it. It then, coming back to my intersectionality point, multiplies when we start looking at other points of differentiation. There's a really, really horrifying study in America about how much more likely you are to die if you're not white across basically every single disease, and it will make you want to cry. So I'm going to try, and everything here, what we've been doing is sort of based on case studies, so I'm going to try and make this a little bit real. Endometriosis is a condition where lining, like the lining of your womb, grows in other places inside your body. And it can literally grow anywhere. So it can be inside your lung, it can be inside your bowel, it can be inside pretty much everywhere. Also, men can get it. It's extremely, extremely, extremely rare, but it can occur in men. The problem with this is that the tissue behaves in the same way as the lining of your womb, so it bleeds, but then you have internal bleeding in parts of your body where that blood can't leave. This is akin to having a chemical burn in those places, so it causes extreme amounts of pain. It also affects about 1 in 10 women, costs the same amount of economic loss as diabetes, and yet it takes on average 7.5 years to be diagnosed. It's partly because it's really complicated. To be diagnosed, you need to have surgery, but it's also because it's a gynae condition and it's concerned with chronic pain. So I have endometriosis, which is why I can talk about it with confidence. The kind of things that I have been told when I was trying to get diagnosed, oh, you just want to have a baby. Your body just wants to have a baby. Or in fact, one time somebody said to me, well, that's just part of being a woman. What do you expect me to do about it? To give you an insight into the levels of pain, I missed my best friend's wedding because I collapsed in Euston Station. So we're talking about extreme levels of pain. What's the solution? Algorithm cadabra. So there is this increasing sort of ontology narrative that algorithms are objective. They can do everything. So if I type into a symptom checker, and I've tested it, it does work. If you type into a symptom checker the things that you're having, because it can't see you, and woman is just a box, maybe it won't care as much. Maybe it won't have the same level of bias. Maybe it will be able to get over things. And so there is now huge amounts of hype about the potential for AI to solve multiple issues in healthcare, whether it be the fact that we simply don't have enough people to run the NHS, so can we hand over responsibility of recognition of scans, abnormal versus normal, to a machine, or if we can do back-end operational efficiency, so like match where doctors should be. Should we have this type of speciality in this location, that speciality in that location? Algorithms are kind of coming to be seen as God. A lot of this is from a sort of really big data narrative, and the idea is we can see everything, so all-seeing equals all-powerful. Okay, there has been some studies now. Like I said, endometriosis was picked up in 3 symptoms checkers that I tried it with. Comes about 2nd or 3rd hit, but it works. There's also been a recent study that algorithms can pick up fibromyalgia, which is also a condition that is associated with chronic pain and still consistently told to patients that it's all in their head. For that point, I will quote Dumbledore, just because it's happening in your mind, why on earth would you mean that that's not real? And the algorithm can look at the scan and see where it's happening in your face. So maybe this is a good thing, or not. This is where the logic is coming from. If anyone has not seen this cartoon, it was from the New Yorker in 1993. It is their most repeated and reprinted cartoon ever. It says on the bottom on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. And this was in the massive hype of the early internet when it first became a commercial product. And the idea being that you could be whoever you wanted to be online. So if you were a woman in real life, you could pretend to be a man or vice versa. And this is still the kind of logic that is prevailing in algorithm idea. So the data is whoever you want to be. But I think all of us would kind of recognize now that this utopia has not become reality because of things like Facebook pushing that you should have a real name policy, but also because of all of the things that we kind of do in the room. You're constantly trying to target at people. And we know there are benefits to that, but it also has meant that some of this utopian idea of we can be whoever we want to be online has been a little bit lost. So the reality is, if that hasn't come to be the case, we're probably not going to see the same utopian benefits of diagnostic algorithms. this may be one of the reasons why. So these are the founders or co-founders of most of the biggest companies currently working in AI in medicine, whether they be DeepMind, Sensine Health, Babylon, what else is on there? MeadowPad. They are the big dogs who are inventing things. I'm not saying that they're not aware of bias. Everyone knows what bias looks like. Everyone can do things and look in terms of the data. You can run it through a 360 toolkit from IBM or from Google's What If. You can look for counterfactuals. You can do all of this. But the problem is, as everyone knows, rubbish in, rubbish out. But the issue is it's society in the loop. So as much as you want to look for the data and look for the problems in the data, yes, maybe what's entrenching existing biases, but if that issue is because we're generating the data off societal bias, the problem is actually much bigger and we need to go further back up the chain. So we need to be considering this right from the beginning. So there are some things that we can do, some things that we're doing at the department in terms of we've created a code of conduct, which is this idea that you think like this from the beginning, but it's also on everyone. We can't do this as a one-part solution. We can't put the pressure on developers. We can't say that you're responsible. We can't say that the state is responsible. Every single person needs to take responsibility for questioning issues when we see in society, because they become ramified and replicated in the data, and then the more and more we use algorithms, the increasingly that those become played back. So there are ways we can hack that and make it work for us. You know, if you want to play back the outputs of an algorithm back into society, because we are all being shaped by data, whether or not we believe it, we are. And how do we make sure that the input from society comes back out with the outputs that we want, as opposed to entrenching issues and making them worse and worse and worse that we already know exist. So these are the things we have to be thinking about all the time. Are we being transparent? Are we being ethical? Are we being accountable? Explicable, I've said that because there is a lot of logic, and a lot of people claim that the GDPR gives you the right to have an explanation of the way that a decision was made about you. That clause is actually not enforceable. It's really, really vague, and also just explaining to someone or just saying, here's my code, it was transparent, is not that useful, especially if I'm sat in a doctor's office and the doctor's gone, what's wrong? Tap, tap, tap. Oh, we need to chop your leg off. Oh, why? Because the data did this calculation. Well, what does that mean? Explicability is much better than explainability. And we should be questioning things when people put in law and say that the GDPR has solved this problem. It really, really hasn't. If you want to look at more, read things like Sandra Wachter, she'll tell you. And we need to be regulated, we need to find the right balance, and we need to be fair. So